Venri Chapter 26. Shepard. She listened as Liara explained, but didn't really believe it. So, I jumped into an ocean in a recently defunct mech, and ended up having a conversation with a creature that's been around for years in numbers that I can't fathom. Is that what you're saying? Or is this a test so I can call you on your bullshit later? Not a test. I asked you not to do it. Moram looked at him. Asked? Why didn't you order me not to do it? He shrugged. Extenuating circumstances. And that's why my head's messed up? Too much fruit in the bowl and it all tipped over? Yes, essentially that. We tried to keep it all from running out your ears and soaking into the ground. Moram bit her lip. Well, thanks for that. At least while I was down there, did I get something done that was worth doing? It's classified for now, but yes, you got something done, including saving the lives of the landing party and potentially many others. As that's your job on a daily basis, there wasn't that much special about it other than the brain-exploding thing. You've had worse days. So now I have their... what? Not memories, but strategies in my head? That's why my biotics are different? Yes, I am a natural biotic. You are an implanted biotic. But I believe the Leviathan species knew more about it. And now so do you. It's non-verbal knowledge. It's probably more comparable to direct experience. I can't tell you how you're doing what you do. Karen believes you are physically and mentally the same as you were before, structurally, but the difference lies in memory and strategy. The way you have behaved after coming back up has introduced what I'd call efficiencies. You're tuned differently. You're using what you inherently have to greater advantage. You will need to speak to the Leviathan again at some point. Maybe you could ask, but I'd avoid further demonstrations. I have to talk to them again? Just for coordination purposes. Oh, awesome. Can't wait. Garrus was breaking down what the next step was in her what's behind door number 3 process of memory rehab. As he was describing something, she said, Reapers, isn't that name a little dramatic? Not really. Not if you've met a banshee. She rubbed her temples. What's a banshee? An indoctrinated Asari. He showed her a picture and she felt her gut clench. Monsters. They fought monsters. And all humans get our husks, huh? We're not all that special, it seems. He was being informative, but she wanted to throw up as he explained that husks were made from dragon's teeth and being impaled, while other processes made indoctrinated humans who retained more function. Oh, yay. Every day I spend trying to get back to myself. People are dying. Yes, people are dying. We can't and haven't saved everybody, but we have saved more lives than I can count. So, as soon as I am back to myself, I'm going to be doing things that likely get me killed on a minute-to-minute basis? Yes, but you have always believed those things worth doing. Yes, that I can believe. Can we hurry this up here? Have I lost anybody new while I was gone? His steady stare answered her question, but he followed up with, "Yes, we have both lost someone new. There's no way I can prepare you for what happened, but you need to know that I do not hold you responsible." I live an ominous life. He looked at her, his face unreadable. It's coming up. Take a little while to absorb this. You died. She jerked her head to stare at him, thinking it was a joke. His face and voice were not indicating that this was funny. I died? Like 15 minutes out on a surgery table? He shook his head. No, you died, as in you were spaced with no oxygen, and it took 2 years and several billion credits to restore you to living. She dropped her head and closed her eyes. The familiar thrumming in her head came back, a mild headache. She wasn't as disoriented as she had been. She had more context and more support than when she first woke, but... Dead? So you're right. I have had worse days. But I didn't die this time? Just the once? Close to dead this time. Seizures, but not actually dead. Thanks for not dying again. First time was rough. So I left your service, and my hiatus was when you were dead. She felt hollow and dizzy. Oh, well, at least I had a good reason. Based on my head, that's enough for now. Let me try to wrap my mind around this. He agreed and looked as though he were about to leave her alone until she said, "Would you please stay? Unless you have something commandery to do, then I understand. Having you around gives me a stable point. It's easier for me to navigate." He walked over and sat next to her on the edge of the medbay bed, then turned to the side, putting his hands on her shoulders and turning her to the side as well. His fingers pressed into the muscle of her shoulders, and she groaned as she felt the strain melt from her. Her head dropped forward. How do you do that? That's some quality stress there, and you're making it go away. I have had some practice. I'm afraid the first time, I mostly just added bruises. You've got this skin weave thing, and it's hard to get the right amount of pressure. Oh, hell, I have skin weave. Sounds like a disease. He kept pressing with his fingertips. No, that's scale itch. Fortunately, we dodged that bullet. I am terrified. He didn't change the pace of his hands. I know. It's always been there. You have good reasons to be terrified. You just don't let it stop you. Unless I die. Unless you die. His fingers dug into her muscles and she flinched and groaned at the pain until it gave way to melting. How long until your next brain dump? Wait, that came out wrong. Yeah, let's try that again. How long until your next procedure? She looked at the clock. Her Omni tool was still defunct. About 2 hours, I think. I think I'm done studying for now. Seems like with the next batch, Ick comes out to play. He stood and pulled her to her feet. Yes, you get to learn all about Reapers and what we're up against. Going to be loads of fun. He pulled her out the door of the medbay and she followed him, asking no questions, just grateful to be out from under all of the watchful eyes except for his. The fishbowl was getting to her. He brought her back into the battery, where they'd done some shooting simulations, and he shut the door behind them. He vaulted over the barriers and lifted her over, moving back into the dark. He sat down against the back wall and indicated that she sit leaning back against him. She gratefully did it, and then felt a deep sigh leave her as she sat and let her head fall forward. He resumed his massage, and she relaxed even further. Better? She nodded gratefully. It is just getting to me, all the stares and glances and names I don't know. People that know me that I don't know. I don't know who to be. It is wearing on my mind. I'm torn between making the most of each moment and sleeping until it's done. What would be making the most of each moment in this case? I don't know. Paintball? Chase each other around the ship? Make something wacky happen that results in a small but not irreparable panic? People are tense, man. Paintball? What is that? It's guns with paint pellets for ammo. You can tell you've been shot by the splatter of color. I know we could do it with lasers and targeting, but paint pellets just sounds frivolous and retro, and since I have no present or future, I have a lot of other people's history in my head. You made waffles for the ship once. Oh, man. I would kill for a waffle. So, how much do you want to run to a life pod and just take off? About 27%. It wavers in intensity. Right about now, I'm happy to stay, though I'm still terrified. Later, after you've given me all your horrifying warnings and serious faces, and I get to find out why I'm worth billions of credits, I'm gonna want to run. Worse, I'm gonna have to stay based on not wanting, but needing. Yeah. So it's not just me. Half the time. No, more than half. I just want to find a cave to hide inside with you. I'm not sure what we'd live on, less in the way of waffles and more in the way of dirt and exciting fungus. We could fail to light a fire, do a lot of swearing, get lost. I could think I'm gonna hunt our dinner, then fall into a ravine, heroically drag myself out, promise to never tell anyone, finally find something half dead already. And then we could both discover it made us violently ill. Romantic. We could look into each other's eyes in our final moments, thinking, why the fuck did we do this? And who thought it was a good idea? It was you. It was your idea. We're gonna die hungry and cold, and it was your idea. At least my broken leg won't hurt anymore. That made him laugh. You make the weirdest noises, snorts and snores. I'd never heard such things before you. You don't snore, you just sort of purr. It's really nice. He nuzzled her neck. Whereas you drool. I don't know what to do or what to say. I know memory used to be like rivers that led places, tributaries and oceans. And right now I only have a bunch of doors with labels, doors I can't open. I'm standing in a long hallway of labeled doors, and it is dark at the end. He pulled her back against him. All right then, let's just decorate the hall a bit, or make a door you can open. You're not in it alone. I'm there with you. Caves don't work, we've discovered, so just pick something else. How about someplace tropical? Someplace tropical with waffles. What is it that you do for fun, Garrus? You know, I'm not sure Turians are built for fun. I'm not sure I had much of it. We're good at satisfaction and bloodlust, and eventually in your company I got good at snark, but fun? I'm not sure we've had as much fun as joy. You've brought joy to my life. When I was the most joyous was our wedding. Do you want to see? I can see? I won't get a bag over my head and get whisked away to a secondary location? He chuckled against her ear, sending flares of sensation down her spine. Not unless you ask nicely. She bit her lip. Okay, yeah. Let's see. She watched the recording on his Omnitool, the amnesiac sense of weird playing out again as she watched herself, watched him in silence. No words. She watched, and he paused it right as he dropped to his knees. He said in her ear, "You might see someone different from you there, but it is still you. There is nothing you have to do or be in this moment. Who you were then and who you are now and who you will be in the future. I was there for you. I will be here for you. I will be there for you. I want more than I want to breathe to show you with my body, but I can't. You mentioned the difference between want and need, and that's why we're not in that cave right now. Turn your mind from apprehension to anticipation. You survived. Parts of you are still sleeping, but they will wake. And it's always been a joy to sleep with you, near you. It's a miracle that you survived, and we did it with the team on this ship and some more help from others that felt indebted to you. Noir credits you for saving her life, and you'd never met her. You will not be sorry to be who you are, I promise you. Garrus. While Moram underwent her more delicate sleep work of linking together memories related to the rest of her life, possibly restoring all of her to them, to him, he received a compliance report from Javik. Based on Kasumi's intel, Javik had taken the shuttle to the Citadel and met Saeed there. Kasumi had noted Balak on several camera interfaces near the docks. The report said, Balak is dead, along with several Batarians harboring him. He ultimately shared his regret regarding his actions, which I am relaying to you. I have forwarded all data wrested from the Batarians to Primarch Victus. I relay my gratitude for the opportunity. Garrus felt a dual-toned shiver of imagination regarding what Saeed and Javik had done, combined with gratitude. It was done. Their mother was gone. Moram would be well. He would tell her. He returned to Javik. You have my gratitude for the completion of a task best suited to your discretion. He didn't have to wonder if Balak suffered. Suffered wasn't a strong enough word. Victus had been able to reach his father and his sister to inform them of their loss. Direct communication with them wasn't possible for Garrus. Solana had passed the danger point of possibly losing her leg and was recovering. His father was coordinating shelter and food. Garrus had a wealth of cold anger and purpose. His vengeance on Balak had not done him harm, but had given him a sense of completion. To not be denied a prize. Salion had deserved a bullet, Sidonis had deserved a bullet, but Balak had deserved Javik. He wasn't Garrus or Vicarian, and he wasn't even Archangel anymore. He was Garrus Shepard. Tempered and sundered and scarred. He learned from Garrus not to be too earnest or too rash. He learned from Archangel not to be too hard or too cold. He wasn't in the middle. He was those tempered modes, chosen when needed. His choices being different from Morim's didn't mean he didn't respect her choices. Now he knew she would also respect his, and that gave him new space in his mind. His doubts about his leadership skills were gone. Morim had lost people under her command, had lost herself, and when she had regained herself, she just kept going, flaws and all, not afraid of showing her flaws, just trying not to flaunt them. He'd learned. They were far past being upset or angry at each other and having that unsettle their relationship. He had opened paths to more Taurian ways of doing things. In some ways, he had come to realize he was an excellent Taurian. He was clear on what he thought Taurians should be, and now in the position to demand it from those following his orders. He'd also now held her command and done well at it. He'd reclaimed his culture, reclaimed his command. Concerns of adequacy rang hollow. He understood her pressures and her placements. He'd made the right choice years ago, being inspired by her, but not trying to be her. At the end of the long days and missions, if they were both alive at the end of those days, they would find each other when they could, seeking comfort, seeking calm, seeking the unique reasons to live they'd forged together. She was going to have to absorb all of herself in a day, and he was learning to take it more, minute by minute. More tempered extremes taken simultaneously. He would have her back, and he would keep her as safe as she let him, and everything else that would happen would happen. And someday they would die. Not today. What mattered is that it would not be today. Somebody else died today, and he was fiercely glad of it. He knew to breathe, to time each shot, to hold still in each moment and stay calm while the front lines advanced. He just needed to apply that to a longer time scale, apply the patience he had learned in combat to patience with her, with his bodies clamoring for her, whose circumstance. He might be bondmate to a Leviathan. Breathe. Shepard. She felt the gentle and persistent presence of Noir, now familiar. Noir assured her that there was no need to feel about what she saw, what she remembered. Morim had been emotionally sedated. Noir reassured her that she was strong enough to bear all that had happened, but she had already suffered the first time. This time was for restoration, not assimilation. She watched with Noir, detached and curious, as her life roared back through her mind, resurgent and assertive, breaking through all weakening barriers. Life on Earth. Brutal, cold, painful, frightening, lonely, harsh, with the knowledge that she had told nobody. How harsh. She'd paved it over, that being the base for her determination, her motivation. Get off the streets, get off the dirt. If. Training. Disciplined. Painful. Rewarding. Finally something rewarding. Suffering wasn't mindless. It had a purpose. training with biotics was like a flower of plasma blooming from her core, finally realized, opening like chakras, like magic. This was the lethality she held under her skin. It came when she called, her first real companion that would be with her throughout her life. Something that wouldn't be taken from her, the way a gun could be disarmed. Invictus. Missions. Disciplined, painful. Losses. Gains. The faces of lovers and friends resolved and dissolved in her mind. Strength built and strength broken, crying and screaming and aimed like a rocket at the heart of whatever needed to be resolved. Power. She was given more, and she soaked it in like a sponge, retaining it and taking it in and making it a part of her until it wouldn't be taken from her. Alienation from people who wanted to run with power like sweat. Learning the ways of power, learning the ways of loss and trajectories, vectors. Learning that math is always projected into the future. I lose someone who volunteered to lose so that I can save innocent life. Sometimes I fail. It is not about me winning, but it is about someone else living. I win, I lose, people die. People live. I do the best I can with what I have, and sometimes I fail. But sometimes I don't. Joan of Arc. Prothean beacon, mind seared, split, forced. A passenger in her mind, bound to grab the wheel at intervals. Normandy. Home. Garrus. Home. Memories fluttered by and she let them slip by unattended. Garrus. Oh, spirits, Garrus. Memories tried to swamp her and she ignored them, seeking along that path. Garrus. Eyes and hands and rifle. Voice and strength and argument. Images of children with blue eyes and red hair. Plates and skin and freedom. Why? This is why. Those children and other people's children. Finally, why? This is why you fight now. This is why you never run, and why you only hide in his arms. A child, holding your hand, taking a first step toward him. If you can't have that, there's going to be a good reason, and you will make sure other people can have it. Breathe. She shut down tears and imaginary children, the flow of memory threatening to overwhelm her. She breathed. Get it done so she could see Garrus and remember everything. She watched her life flow around and through her, soaking significance and purpose and meaning directly into her mind, filling the empty places, doors opening. She felt Noir's internal touch as she briefly paused to aid support. You are a mother, Shepard. Garrus is a father. Children have lived and been born because of you. It is what parents do. Watch over their children. Allow for them to live, taking no credit. Never doubt it. Thank you. She took a deep breath and steeled herself against the battering of memory. The shocks and horrors and mistakes piled up on top of each other. She remembered dying. Thankfully, she didn't relive the pain. She remembered waking up. Compression of time left her stunned and not even braced for each shock, permanently shocked, absorbing more in each moment. She could feel Noir's presence like a cushion. Shields. She was able to assimilate and would be able to get back to where she had been before. Leviathan. This she didn't know, hadn't remembered, had only touched in the water of her dreams. Her dreams had never been of water before, of the endless time flow of will and persistence. Will and persistence for eons. Her mind reached differently, retrieved differently, stored differently than it had. So much space, so much time, oceans and eons and patience. The knowledge had been a gift. She understood it now, a gift that she had rejected and misunderstood. Not only had the Leviathan granted her assistance in the fight, they had granted her assistance personally. She hadn't been able to assimilate it. Cold and exhaustion and pressure sickness had overwhelmed her, and she had failed to understand. She understood now. Acceptance was what was required. Rejection would result in failure. She needed her team to achieve acceptance. Her children, her mate, her purpose. She smiled, energized and ready. Noir's presence rippled through her mind with approval. Noir asked if she would accept a gift. Yes. Noir responded that this would be from Garrus, that she gave to him what it was that Moram wished for him to understand, and that he wished for Moram to understand this. Fierce waves of protective love washed through her, directly poured into her heart and mind. Things she'd seen in his eyes and heard in his voice, and hadn't doubted, but hadn't felt this directly. Not desire, not something he wanted for himself, not about pleasure or duty, about the rightness of waves on the shore, about the rightness of beating of a heart, something necessary to continued living. The difference between living as he had on Omega, on instinct and spite, and when she made him live with purpose. That's how he loved her. That's what he wanted her to know, needed for her to know. Her burdens were his. He wished to carry them as he wished to carry her body. He wanted to cradle her in her sleep, fend off nightmares, make her smile, make her melt when she laughed, make her cry out his name under his hands. No level of infirmity would take her from him. She would never fail him. He would always choose to serve her. His chosen purpose. His Venri. Moram said to Noir, "Thank you. Where is he?" "He is safe. He is here, waiting. Liara wishes to be assured that my work has been in your service." "It was, from my heart. Thank you." Noir lifted her fingers and Liara's replaced them. Liara vibrated joy through her contact, and Moram asked if she passed inspection. A few moments of Liara's fingers and presence, and Moram was kissed on the forehead, a tear falling beside the press of her lips. Liara lifted her fingers and Moram sat up and hugged her. Liara sang, "Welcome back, Ayame." Moram held her tighter. "Thank you, dearest friend." Liara turned her by the shoulders to face Garrus, who was standing, quietly watching, motionless. Seeing him was transformative, lighting up all the parts of her that had been dark, suspected but now fully appreciated. She walked to him and saluted. "Commander Shakarian." He saluted in return. "Ms. Shepard?" Reporting for duty. That's good. You've been negligent. Sloppy work. I'll try to learn my lesson and do better in the future, sir. He raised a brow plate. It's almost like you think it's funny. She shrugged. I have a very strange sense of humor. Garrus looked behind her to Liara. Is she all there? Liara nodded. As far as I can tell. Garrus looked Moram up and down once. All right. I'll see what I can do to verify that. Moram stayed at parade rest. He was the commander. This was no longer her ship. She wasn't eager to get it back. She would be patient. She was so overwhelmingly grateful to be back to herself and to him for getting her there safely. He could lead. Garrus looked at her and told Dr. Shakwas. I really like her this way. Good work. Liara laughed, Noir smiled, and Karen looked proud. Garrus nodded to them, and then asked Moram. Are you hungry or thirsty? Do you need more rest? Moram shook her head. No, sir. Ready for debriefing. He tilted his head. Long overdue. Do you remember the way to our cabin? She tilted her head back. I think I could find my way there. Garrus nodded his permission. Excellent. I'll follow you. Moram made her way to the elevator and gestured for him to come in, and he turned and waited patiently until she hit the right button and made it to their cabin. When the cabin door didn't open to her biometrics, he explained. I temporarily disabled your biometrics and now it requires a password. It's the same as your Omni tool. Moram paused, smiled, and entered fuck_off_Garrus into her Omni tool and also the door. She went in, he stayed behind, reauthorizing her biometrics. She tapped on the cage for Boo and admired her fish. Thank you for feeding them. He walked into the cabin, staying on the landing above the steps. You are welcome. Details. He was good with details. Her mind was whole because he was good with details. She would let him do this his way. He still wasn't sure she was herself. There were so many new parts to her, she wasn't sure he was wrong. They certainly had to be concerned that she could be a Leviathan pawn. Having command returned to her was not a certainty. As long as he kept her with him, she didn't care right now. He looked at her. He was thinking, but he was also drinking her in. The way she was drinking him in. Enough in this moment to talk, to get back to each other after such distance. What was the name of the shuttle on the original Normandy? Mako. What's the name of the shuttle now in the bay of this Normandy? Kodiak. What was the name of Thane Krios' wife? Eureka. Who took hostages during the attempt to destroy Terra Nova? She'd become oversensitized to that particular tone of neutrality in his voice. And she was on alert, but she answered, Kaharel Balak. What did my mother ask you to call her? Lenim. Do you feel like yourself? Is there anything I should know about how you feel now? Her mind was racing around his questions, but she had chosen to follow the path he marked out very carefully. She suspected He was asking her if her feelings for him had changed along with everything else, and he was giving her a chance to tell him. Understandable and terrifying. There is a lot of Leviathan in my head now, but it's something I can work with. I believe overall it will be a boost in efficiency, as Liara suspected. If there are any other changes, I will let you know. Beyond that, no. His shoulders appeared to relax, just slightly, but the tension in his face remained. Morim, I told you that we lost someone new. As a matter of command, and of personal concern, I need you to know that our Ava, your Lanim, is dead. Tears sprang to her eyes, but he put this in command, military terms, and that tightened her jaw. What happened? His eyes held hers, and he kept the military stance that was protecting them both. Kahira Balak ordered an attack on Caduceus Station under the guise of a blood pack attack. Trainer identified the signal. Our Ava died when the station integrity was ruptured. Where is Balak now? I asked Kasumi to locate him, which she did. He was with refugees on the Citadel. I dispatched Javik and requested help from Zaid in order to resolve the issue. Javik is on his way back. He has assured me of Balak's ultimate regret and subsequent death. Javik relayed all collected information to Primarch Victus regarding research stolen and mercenary activities. Morim's legs threatened to give out. She held them by force of will, but they still trembled. Time passed as she struggled to absorb this, of all the information she'd taken in today. It was her fault. Garrus didn't want her to feel that it was her fault. Not after this. He could have simply not told her. It explains why he didn't want to touch her right now, or at least that he wouldn't touch her until she knew. Thank you for informing me, Commander. How do you want me to feel about this? She knew it was the wrong thing to say as soon as she said it. She wanted to know how he felt, wanted his input on how she was feeling, but it came out cold. She shook her head suddenly. Wait, that's not what I meant. I am not being sarcastic. I'm not being cold. I'm genuinely asking how you want me to feel, because it matters. I'm grateful to be back to me. I'm so grateful to see you. I'm horrified Ava is dead. I do not disapprove of your actions. I wish I'd thought of Javik myself. That was brilliant. And I don't know how to feel, except too much. And that I need to know how you feel. Garrus stepped in front of her and tipped her chin up, and she was looking into blue. She saw reflected understanding of command that he wanted her to see. He was not only assuring that she was herself, but that he'd done his job and her job while she was gone. Venri, I want you to allow me to make the decision and bear the weight for you. It is what she would want. It is what I want. Grieve, but do not blame anyone but Balak for his own death. Who do you blame for hers? His hand came to cradle the back of her neck, and she was grateful for the support and the warmth, and that he wasn't unwilling to touch her. Not you. With the look in his eyes and the choices he'd made, she said, "Commander Shakarian, I would follow your orders, and I will honor the times you've had to go alone into hell without me. You have always been there for me, and I have not always been there for you. Please forgive me for that. Thank you for your honesty, for trusting me. I haven't always deserved it, but I will try to deserve it in the future." His eyes searched her face, his expression and voice echoing disbelief. "This was vengeance, Morim. You understand that?" "Yes." He expected her to continue, but she waited for him to ask, "You're not angry at me? You don't think less of me?" "Garrus, no, this is... Let me think." She closed her eyes and took a few breaths, trying to get it right. "You are, and have always been, on the side of right. Black and white, that's how you put it. What I saw. I'm more gray. I asked you to stop with Sidonis, and I asked you to stop with Salion because I couldn't push you into the dark. Do you understand? I was your commanding officer. I gave you my best guidance. I could influence you, make you think that dark was what I condoned. They both deserved to die. Balak deserved to die. Hell, even Harkin deserved to die. It was not for them, it was for you, to keep you where I thought you wanted to be, in the light. You might have hated me for me asking you to do it my way, but I would never have hated you for you doing it your way. I wanted to protect you. And there are some things I can't protect you from when you are in command. That's the way command works. You know that now. You are beyond my influence now. You have command of your own. You do what you do, and you deal with the consequences. It is done. I will not be a consequence. I would never have been a consequence, Garrus. I would never have made you pay. I wouldn't let them make me feel any differently about you. You took this ship. Everyone followed you. In command, you have to take it and make it yours. And that was yours. You will die a good man, Garrus. You are not going to change. Even when I died, you almost got yourself killed, but you didn't do it by becoming a slaver or an abuser of people. You tried to protect people that were at the highest risk. That's you, Garrus. You're doing it every day. I don't want you to be me. You're not under my command now except by your own choice. He responded by yanking her off her feet, lifting her by the waist, his other hand behind her neck, kissing her with voracious heat and force, pushing her head back, sliding his tongue into her mouth. That was clearly the right answer. She kissed him back, bringing one hand behind his head to caress the hide there, dragging her fingers along the Kinrail's path, one hand covering the bite mark on his neck. She said against his mouth, "Debriefing over?" Oh no, just starting. He squeezed an arm around her waist. You're my commanding officer. This is harassment. He moved his mouth to bite at her throat. Right now, you have no rank until it's restored. Otherwise, file charges tomorrow. I missed you, Venri. I missed you so much. She pulled his face up so she could look at him. Are you okay? He put her down on the ground, pressed his crest against her forehead. I have you back. You have too many clothes on. He started to pull her clothes off, but he stopped her. Hold still. Is that in order? He raised his eyes to hers, quirked a small smile, pulled her head back and exposed her throat. He looked there, bit down, not enough to draw blood, but enough to hurt. Yes, that is an order. I don't want to hurt you when I slice your clothes off. Because when I hurt you, I want to do it intentionally. He held her hair, pulled back to look at what he was doing, slicing down a curve of fabric from her neckline down around the outer edge of her breast, the cool air and the trailing edge of his talon on her skin, making her pull in a deep breath, but she tried not to move from it. With her shirt slashed open, he lowered his head to touch his mouth to her nipple, lightly grazing with his tongue, mouth plates pressing into her skin. She leaned back against his hand, arched into his mouth. He lifted his head and watched as he sliced the fabric down from her neck to her waist, letting it fall away, crossing his hand over and doing the same on the other side. He followed with his mouth. He left little nips and touches of his tongue to her arms and then her hands, and the fabric fell away. He hauled her back up against him. They took you from me, out of my arms. They wouldn't let me touch you. They wouldn't let me hold you. I almost killed them for doing that. Leave it to you to find a way to make that happen, Pecan. He kissed her, gentle and persuasive, building up to rough and hard, his hand holding her head by her hair. He asked her, Does it make you dizzy? She tried to nod, but her head wouldn't move. When he laughed, she said, Yes. His breath was coming hard. When they let me see you again, it took every bit of strength to not mark you. You are my Suncan, and they took you from me. Took me from you. You kissed me, and I wanted to drive you into the ground with my body. I didn't care that you didn't know my name. She was unaccustomed to reverie, and she was dizzy, as dizzy as she'd been the first time he kissed her. He repeated the words he'd said in the shuttle on the way back up. Never do that again. Yes, sir. He growled, pulled her to the bed, sat her on the edge of it, and she reached for him, seeking his waist, and he repeated his admonition to hold still. She sliced her pants off, leaving 2 red-streaked grooves in her upper thighs. He licked at the marks and pushed her back on the bed with one hand. He removed his clothes, glaring at her, daring her to move, and she didn't. She was drowning in dizzy and desire and guilt. He ground his hands against the ridges on his shoulders and then leaned over her, dragging 6 tracks of scent down her body, starting at her collarbones, sliding down her breasts, her stomach, and then her upper thighs. She breathed in and arched her head back, dizziness accelerating into vertigo. He moved between her thighs and pressed her wider apart, digging his talons into her skin. She gripped the edge of the bed as his mouth moved with the intent of possession. His tongue lashed at her, and he pressed her thighs open further, painfully, though that was drowning in the reverie, talons digging deeper. He wrested moans and whimpers from her, and then he gentled his tongue until she was trembling and aching, trying to press up against his mouth. He stopped, and she tried to arch back up to him, but he held her legs apart, turned his head to bite the inside of her thigh, hard, drawing blood. She let out a shriek as his mouth returned to her clit, the sting of the bite and the taut trembling of her thighs pressed wide with his hands, swirling into urgency. Something building, and something that had to stop, something that had to be relieved. His mouth teased and then demanded, and he released one of her thighs to slide a blunt finger into her until she arched her mouth against him, crying out his name. He stood and flipped her over easily on her stomach, lifting her ass and dragging her back to him. He pushed into her with a reverberating growl that melted her spine. Nova, rush, reverie sensation scattered through her, and he lifted her back against his chest, an arm around her waist and a hand spanning her throat. He bit at her throat, reverie making it warm fireworks, trails of blood, distinct tracks sparking on her skin. He moved his hand from her throat and put a patch of hide from his forearm in front of her mouth. Bite. She licked at his skin, felt that rock through him, with him catching his breath and nuzzling at her throat, tongue pressed to the dots of blood, humming against her skin. The sound turned into a groan and then a snarl as she bit down. He carried her over, pressed her up against the cold glass of the fish tank, dragged his forearm over her throat until blood mingled, then licked at her skin with hungry growls. The glass warmed from the heat of her skin, and her head fell back against his shoulder. He held her there, by both hips, talons digging in, little stars of pleasure at the end of his fingers. He pulled from her body and slammed back in. You came back to me. Always. He pulled out again, angled her body into a steeper penetration. Stay with me. Always. He looked at her throat, a full-body purr of pleasure radiating from his chest. He thrust and withdrew, his words low and warm, hypnotic and welcome, pausing between each word to breathe in scent or lick at her throat. I am so proud of you. I am so proud to be your bondmate. He glided his cock into her at the pace of her breathing, faster and harder, brought his hand between her and the glass, sought out her clit with his fingertips. Come for me, Morin. Come around me. I need to feel you come. I need to hear it. Show me. His mouth, his hands, and his voice, and his cock, he brought her, breathless and shaking, to another teeming orgasm that swirled like vortex through her head, wrung all the strength from her muscles. He leaned in, panting, kissed the back of her throat, moving her sweat-stranded hair aside. After a few long moments of breathing together, he leaned her back against him and carried her to the bed. Stayed joined with his mouth at her ear, with him whispering her name, words of love and devotion, until she fell asleep.